Nikki. It's really good to see you. I'm sorry it's such an overcast and really humid day, but I thought maybe we'd do some of the herbs today, if that's okay with you.
Wonderful. Please show us what you have, Helen.
Okay, so coming around this way, one of the things I wanted to show you was, well, I have some little trees, and this is kind of a garden. We're on the gravel part of the garden, which is great because I don't have to cut. I have some bonsai trees, which I have neglected this year. So half of these will get buried in the garden. The ones that are, like this is a trident maple. It's not quite, I've had it about a year, so it's probably a few years old, but I haven't really done anything with it. I'm just kind of letting it acclimate itself. But some of the others I should have wired and pruned, and I just was busy doing other projects this year, so I didn't do that. I have a small rock garden, which is nice, because then I do not lose my little tiny plants. And there's a lot of smaller plants in the spring. It's a beautiful kind of covering of purple and pink, some different small tulips and crocuses. And then one of the things I wanted to show you is my garden is kind of almost like a cottage garden. If a plant likes where it is, it usually gets to stay there. I started out with kind of a formal herb garden, and it's hard to give every plant what it likes in that setting. So I wanted to show you something that loves to grow in gravel, and I have it growing different places. It just pops up all over, is thyme. And it comes and pops up, so there's thyme, and there's some over there that's starting. So it looks beautiful. It's some of the best thyme I've ever had, and I think I'm going to pick a little bit because I wanted to maybe put it in one of the things that we're going to make a little bit later. So that should be about enough. And the flowers, the bees love the flowers, and the flowers are edible, so it's a nice thing that you can put into as a little decoration. So I do mostly herbs, culinary for cooking. A lot of these also have medicinal uses, but I'm not as much into the medicinal. You can make salves, different types of things, but prefer not to tell somebody that if you take this, it is going to cure you of this, that, or the other thing, because it may work for one person and not the other. But one of the things that I really like about my garden, back to my little rock garden, is it's a great place for little hostas. They don't get lost. I have a tendency to have what I call kind of the garden of the fittest. If you're a big thug, you'll make it, and otherwise, perhaps not. So I have different flowers. If you come back in a couple of weeks, I should have a lot of lilies that are blossoming. But this is the middle of July, and so things are just a little bit in between. I think you were here a week ago, and we had beautiful blossoming roses. And
yes, it was gorgeous, but it is today as well. Definitely.
So anyway, so this is coming through here. Here's hyssop. This is it almost has like a root beer flavor to it. If you want to smell that, it's really, it's got a very nice, and it comes up here. It's where it likes to live. So that's it. Some grapes, not too many this year. Black-eyed Susans. And then coming around this way, I have onions. Seem to really like this. So about every other year I put onions in here. And the onions have done really quite well this year.
They look like they're about ready for picking.
They're getting there. They're getting there. They should fall over in a week or two, I think, and then you're kind of done. And somebody had given me some tomatoes, and so I have a few tomatoes I put in at the very end. I do like to let plants reseed. This is some mustard. It's actually kind of a purple mustard. I've had it for years. I've had it for years, and it will reseed, pop up here, there, and everything. And I pick the leaves when they're little and put them in when we still have a lot of lettuce, and let the lettuce, the nice little bitter crunch with the lettuce. The other thing in this area that loves to grow here, this is where I plant my leeks, but something's eating my leeks. I have no clue. It could be one of those little tiny bunny rabbits. But I have dill, and dill is a prolific reseeder. I have not planted dill in years. It's getting to the point that if I had cucumbers, I could make some pickles. But when it first comes up, the fresh dill is, before it starts to go to seed like this and start to flower, it is so tender and so great. And I use it for dip or chopped on fresh boiled potatoes. Awesome. The other thing that likes to grow in this area are poppies. And these also are just about done. This is a pink poppy. I have a couple of others around, but this is the one that's the most prolific. And pretty soon the seed head will open up around this bottom. So you can cut this off, put it in a bowl, and then as the seeds develop and ripen, they will fall into the bowl. So I love these poppies. They do pop up here and there, and I think they're very pretty. And like I said, somewhere in here are leeks. And you know, if I didn't have all this other stuff growing here, they would grow bigger. But but this is my, you know, they're fighting for space, and it all works out somehow or other. So yeah, these have been the ones that I really, really like. So I'll show you how I make dill dip, and the other thing that I use dill for this time of the year is in a tomato salad.
Fantastic.
This is bishop's weed, and it was like just as wide as it was big, and I had to kind of cut it up and out because it's just way too
Almost
big.
looks like a tree.
It is big. It usually gets like about 6 feet. I think it may have gotten 7 this year. But we had a lot of rain at the right time. It has a lot of seeds. It's not bishop's weed, it's bishop's flower. Or it has some other names. It has hollow stems. I planted this maybe 20 years ago, and every year I'll get a couple that pop up. This year I decided to let one grow, and it has all these seeds, which I was just reading about it, and evidently goldfinches like the seeds, so I think I'll leave some of it for the goldfinches. But I like, you know, a lot of these seeds, if you don't let them grow for one, I mean, they are in the soil forever and ever and ever. So they're almost like weeds, but plants with a purpose.
Do you have problems managing all of this? Like are there certain items that like to overtake the garden that you have to keep pruning back? And
definitely. There's some little blue flowers, purple lavender flowers back there. That's creeping bellflower. That stuff is all over. I have a horrible time getting rid of it. And I think I should be pulling those out. There's also some wild, like a different type of garlic that likes to pop up here and there. Something like the dill is really easy to pull. I mean, it pulls out really easily. Poppies pull out easily.
Even with my mask, I can smell the scents, though. It's amazing.
I love it. It's great. Then this was one of the original herb gardens. So I still have some herbs in here. This is a sculpture that my brother Dick Purinton made. He likes to weld things together, so he and his son Hoyt made me this lovely beverage bench, I think he called it.
Very unique.
And so here I have some more poppies that I allowed to live, I guess. You see, they pull out really easily.
Oh, wow.
So it's really like, if you want to get rid of them, it really is not an issue. And a true cottage garden is kind of a hodgepodge, and I think of it like as a poor person's garden, where you get plants and slips and seeds from other people. Things get kind of mixed in, so you have a mixture of herbs and vegetables and flowers kind of all together, and things that reseed. And so it's a a garden that has beauty, but it's also a garden that has a lot of
Functionality,
usefulness.
yes.
Yes. This is borage. This is another reseeder. And these are actually, it gets to be really picky when it's very young and it starts to come up. The leaves are good, and you can add those in salad, and has kind of like a cucumber taste. But they get very picky when they're older, so I don't like them leaning out while you walk past them. But the little flowers are really awesome. They're very cute, very blue, very pretty, and very edible. So they look really nice if you want to sprinkle them on a salad. Got a couple cabbages. Then I've had this lavender for a number of years. I've had different lavender plants. This one seems to like it here, and it's doing a really good job. So I made some lavender lemonade for you, and I have...
Does lavender like sun, or does it partial shade, or doesn't it seem to matter?
I think it likes sun,
Okay.
and it actually gets quite a bit of sun here for a good deal of the day. So it really works well. And you know, I just saw something here that I wonder. Maybe not. I don't know. That's a... Huh. I planted something last year. I thought it wouldn't come back. Maybe it did. Who knows? and so more borage. And then this is sage. And this I really cut back this year. It was like way over here, and it was like, you guys are too big. This has gotta go. But it's one of the things that you can do with sage leaves like this is just take them separately and fry them in butter.
Oh, it smells just delightful.
They are delicious. They really are. And this is the type of sage that has the larger leaves. So it really is good. Then this is chives. And chives have a beautiful pink flower. This is it before it kind of goes to seed. There will be a little seed in each one of these little, see the little black seed in there. And those are, I use those mostly in the spring.
Sure.
And kind of a oniony type substitute. And they're great sprinkled on whatever. Another straight tomato. The other thing I like to do, and I have been doing for years, is I always buy a flat of alyssum, and I put alyssum around my garden.
Yeah, just add some different texture to it.
Oh, and the smell is so wonderful. It really, really does smell good.
Look at those beautiful onions.
I know.
They're just gorgeous.
They're just so much fun. You can take one home with you if you like.
Oh, you're so kind.
This is Greek oregano. And I chop this, you have to chop this back. It kind of spreads out as you go along. This is there is a white flower, and this is like any kind of hornet, yellow jacket, wasp, whatever. The stinging ones, the ones that can sting you more than once, for some reason,
to that?
they love this flower. So I am just about ready to just cut all the flowers off because there is no way.
You want to enjoy being in your garden, not getting stung, right?
I had a clump. The clump used to be over there, and I remember walking into that garden, and I got stung about 5 or 6 times, and it was like, this is not happening again. But this is Greek oregano, and it has a nice. It's funny. I worked for some Sicilians at one time, and they had a whole drawer full. It was a bakery. And they had a whole drawer full of dried Italian oregano. They didn't like that Mexican oregano because it was too bitter.
Sure.
And it's sort of like each country has its own oregano. I don't know. So I have the Greek. I've had other kinds, but this is the one that I probably use the most. And made a big pot of spaghetti a couple days ago, and it went in there.
Very good.
This lovely plant is another one that will probably be, I'm going to cut this down also in a bit. It has also umbral seeds. So it looks, an umbral is something that looks something like an upside down umbrella.
Sure.
So it has a lot of little seeds. And this plant also I use in the spring, although if I would cut it down and a lot of the new growth, this is bitter. But if you get down into the middle of it where it's a little bit
more tender pieces.
it's
aren't
more
quite as
tender,
bitter.
and this has a real, I can probably smell it. I keep smelling you things. This has a celery,
Yes, I smelled celery, definitely.
and so it comes up first thing in the spring, and it's great because you can, like this I probably would put in
Soups and
or
things.
stews or something like that, but it does, I think I just like it because it gets so big. But it's like the bishop's flower over there. It has hollow. I know this is probably not gonna. Nope. But the stems are hollow, so you can use them like straws.
Fun.
So one of the things that you could do is cut these up, and because it has that great celery kind of a smell taste to it, you can use them for straws for your Bloody Mary.
There you go.
So how about that? So I don't know if, oh yeah, there's one other thing here. There's see, they're just tucked here, there, and everywhere. And this is tarragon, which is, oh, and a little dill. That'll be fresh and nice. So, oh, tarragon and a weed in there. Look at that. Weeds just all over the place. Tarragon this is French tarragon, which is the kind they recommend, a little bit more tender. And it has almost an anisey flavor to it. It's very good for use with fish. Like if you have a fish and you want to bake it or grill it, you can just take some of that and put it in the middle.
Sure.
Cook it, and then, or put it on the platter. You can put pretty herbs and plants on the platter, and then put the grilled fish on top. Awesome. And this is my newest reseeder, but I didn't reseed like. You can see it's going to flower here, and you can see that it's got a zillion seeds. I dug this up really good this spring. I think I managed to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plants, but if you look at the number of seeds on there, you will see that I will have plenty if I don't mess around too much with it. This is a plant that grows in the Southwest. I don't know, it doesn't seem to smell.
But it's adapted well.
Well, and it does seem to reseed here once. I'm very happy.
Your birds are very happy too. Do you can hear them chirping?
Yeah, I have a lot of birds actually. They really like it in here. But that is good if you put it in a pot of beans, if you're cooking dried beans. It is supposed to help with flatulence. I don't know. But it imparts a flavor. I always think it kind of smells like kerosene. I mean, it does not smell good when you think about putting it in and cooking with it, but it really is pretty good once it's cooked. So beauty is as beauty does. You want to have it be as your garden's as beautiful and useful. And when you were here last time, this was just covered in beautiful blossoms, and so it's kind of done for now.
Something for everyone in this beautiful garden of Helen's. Wow.
Well, it's there's a lot of clay, gravel, and rock in this yard. So it was never, let's just dig up this area and have a garden. It's been difficult. So all the soil has basically been made. So there's a line. If you dig out here, you're going to have solid clay. So everything that's in here has been soil that's been made. And I'm a firm believer in composting. My dad always, in grade school and high school, always got me organic gardening. So that was the fun one. So then this year I put my tomatoes up here. I'll probably go through here in a week or two. I'll let some more fruit set, and then I will just really prune these so they get a lot of sun into the tomatoes. This is rock, which heats up. So the reason I have all the sedum around the edges is because it does well with the warmth.
Yes.
It does not need to be watered at all. And so then if you get back in about a foot or so, then the garden plants are far enough away from the hot rock to really do okay.
You're going to be making some salsa, I think, with all of these tomatoes and...
Well, I have to can them. See, this
Yes.
is, yeah, a lot of, I do a lot of freezing, canning, whatever. And one of the other things that I wanted to show you that reseeds itself. So the thing is, when these plants come up, you have to be able to tell what your herb is and what your weed is. And then sometimes you just go out in the garden and you're just angry and you just pull
And
everything up.
how did you
and
learn
then
all that?
Because you start out very small. You start out with a few plants, you get to know them, you know what they look like as seedlings, and when they're little, you can pick them up with a little spoon and move them wherever you want them. But I was going to show you, this is cilantro. This is a type of cilantro. It's kind of like a lacy cilantro. We usually think of the cilantro you get in the grocery store, but this is a little different kind.
Yeah.
And you can see the seeds, which would be coriander. So you can use these if you want to do like some Indian cooking. And unfortunately, cilantro never seems to ripen at the same time the tomatoes do. So I usually get my cilantro
like
from
in
the grocery
curry,
store.
would you use that in some curries and things like that?
You could do that, or you could save the seeds and use them. The thing about gardening is you get fascinated by other cuisines. But one of the other things, I do love self-seeders, I have to say. This is lettuce. And
Oh yeah.
so this is, when you're saving seeds, you usually try to focus on the biggest and earliest plant. I did go through here and pull out the others because I thought I'd clean it up for you. But this is a lettuce plant. This is a lettuce plant that is bolted and gone to seed. So once it's
harvested all the lettuce for the most part.
well, yeah, they just don't. But the seed has the cute little yellow flowers.
Beautiful.
It is. And the seed will kind of fall, and in the spring it will be one of the first things to
So it has
sprout.
this purpose. I mean, you're able to enjoy eating it, and then you can enjoy
Right.
the beauty of it. Yeah.
So it's one thing to sow lettuce seed, buy plants or sow plants inside, but I have some early lettuce that sows seeds all by itself, and when this sprouts, I basically know it's time to plant lettuce. So tomatoes, really nothing else along in here, I don't think. Except potatoes, they reseed themselves. They are just wild. And then this is all raised. I have asparagus in there, another tomato. I had a lot of tomatoes. I wanted to point out this. This is bronze fennel, and it also has a bit of an anise, licoricey type flavor. It is not the fennel that has the bulb that you would cook. That's Florence fennel. But this is grown basically for its bronzish foliage. So if you wanted to put some inside a fish that you were cooking, etc., also a good idea. But the reason I always leave a nice stand of it, and this is probably 2 to 3 years old, 3 to 4 years old. So it's kind of a shorter-lived perennial. Again, it has the umbral yellow flowers, and it's a host plant for the swallowtail butterfly. And I always thought it was interesting because when you look at it, it looks like it has caterpillars crawling all over it for some reason, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So I don't know if that's to hide the caterpillars. I am not really sure. But that's just an interesting plant. So I always, now this may die out, or I may decide I don't like it here. So I always try to make sure that I save a plant or two so it can grow and be happy the next year.
When you were getting started, did you mark everything? Or did you draw diagrams or
Oh, I have plans.
plans all over?
I'm beyond plans.
Nice.
This plant over here is actually aconites or monkshood. And that one is also an herb, but it's poisonous. All of it is poisonous. The stems, the leaves, the roots, and the flowers.
Okay.
But it has beautiful flowers, one of the last purple flowers to blossom in the fall. I don't have little kids or pets running around, so I'm indulging myself. This is, you know, I'm gonna have to step on this, but this is another thing that I planted this years ago and it just reseeds itself. This is chamomile in potatoes.
Oh, yes.
I think there was spinach here at one point. But it has these little flowers, and this is a digestive. It's what, if you drink sleepy time tea, I believe there's chamomile in the tea.
Yes.
Edible little flowers. It looks very similar to this flower, but actually they're different. This is feverfew, which is another herb. It's actually golden feverfew, and it's a perennial. So it's short-lived. It'll live for a few years. I usually pull it out after the second year because it gets really woody and not very attractive. So that's also a very...
Looks like a little daisy.
It is, and it's one that I kind of inherited from my mother, and I love it, and it pops up here and there. I'll probably pull that out. Asparagus is done. I'm done picking, and so there will be a little wall of asparagus ferns sooner or later back in there.